Karen invaded my space, and my K9 set things straight. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Your dog attacked me, Karen shrieked, clutching her arm, while Ranger sat perfectly still at my heel, tongue lolling like it was just another Tuesday. The hallway of our apartment building echoed with her screeching. At the far end, two neighbors froze by the stairwell, watching me like I might unleash some monster instead of a 70-pound German shepherd with more self-control than most people I know. My name's Alex. I work nights as a hospital security officer, which means I'm used to drunks, screaming families, and people lying straight to my face. Still, hearing that lie about Ranger made my stomach drop. If she convinced management or animal control he was dangerous, I could lose him, and maybe my lease with him. Ranger's a retired K9, trained for obedience and detection. I adopted him after his handler got injured and couldn't keep him. My apartment is small, nothing fancy, but it's clean, quiet, and built around his bed, his bowls, his routines. It's our sanctuary after 12-hour shifts of chaos and fluorescent lights. Now we were surrounded by chaos again, but this time in the place I paid for to feel safe. Karen was blocking the hallway like she owned the whole building, blonde bob perfectly sprayed in place, yoga pants spotless, HOA badge lanyard swinging like a cop's shield. "You saw it," she yelled to the neighbors. He lunged at me. "This animal is dangerous." Ranger's head tilted, eyes on my hand, waiting for whatever I asked him to do next. I took a breath, feeling my heartbeat in my ears, and glanced up at the tiny black dome camera mounted above the elevator door. What that quiet little hallway camera had captured would decide everything for us. When I first moved into Maple Court Apartments 18 months ago, Karen seemed fine. Not friendly, exactly, but the kind of neighbor who brought store-bought cookies to the welcome meeting and corrected the leasing agent on the wording of the parking rules. She introduced herself as Karen Fields, head of the Resident Advisory Committee, like she was half celebrity, half sheriff. Back then, Ranger was still adjusting to retirement. He shadowed me from room to room, suspicious of every new sound but obedient to every command. Our place was on the 3rd floor, 1 bedroom, tiny balcony, view of the parking lot. After working in a hospital security office tucked in a basement, even that cramped space felt like luxury. Karen's unit was across the hall, mirror image of mine, but with fake plants on the door and 3 different welcome signs. The first time she saw Ranger, she smiled tight and said, "Oh, big dog. Hope you read the pet rules. They're strict." "I did," I said. "He's fully trained. Former K9. Very stable." She laughed without humor. "Everyone says their dog is an angel, until someone gets bitten." I brushed it off. Lots of people are nervous around big dogs. I kept Ranger close, made sure he stayed in a perfect heel in common areas. Still, I caught her watching us through the peephole sometimes, that little circle of darkness flickering as we walked past. The first time her pleasant mask really slipped was a week later, when Ranger dared to sniff one of her potted plants. Karen's smile vanished the first time Ranger dared to breathe near her roses. The first red flag came as a yellow sticky note on my door. Per lease agreement, dogs must not be left unattended on balconies. Noise travels. Be considerate. Karen, RAC. Ranger had been outside for maybe 5 minutes while I washed dishes with the door open. He hadn't barked once. I checked the clock, then checked the lease. Technically she was right, but it felt petty. I apologized to no one and brought him inside. Then packages started arriving slightly opened. Not enough to claim theft, just enough that the tape was torn and the cardboard bowed. One day I stepped into the hallway and caught Karen halfway down the corridor, her eyes flicking from the Amazon box by my door to me. "Oh," she jumped. "Just making sure no one steals your deliveries. I keep an eye out. This building has issues." "Appreciate it," I said, even though I didn't. Ranger stood between us, tail low but wagging, ears pricked. He let out a quiet huff through his nose, the sound he made when he didn't quite like someone. After that, I started noticing more things. The faint shadow of her feet under my door at weird times. The way her peephole darkened then lightened every time my keys jingled. Another note, this one about acceptable walking hours for pets, which weren't actually listed anywhere in the lease. I told myself she was just lonely and bored. "Ignore it," my coworker Marco said during our lunch break. "You work security. You know people overreact. As long as she's not calling the cops, let it go. I tried. I really did. Then I came home one day to find Ranger whining softly at the door, and my doormat moved 6 inches inside my apartment. That was the first moment I wondered if Karen had actually been inside my home. I told myself I must have bumped the mat that morning, even though I couldn't picture it. Maybe I was tired. Night shift does that to you. Still, I started locking the deadbolt even when I took the trash out. The escalation happened at the next building community meet and greet, which was just lukewarm punch in the lobby and Karen reading bullet points off a clipboard. I brought Ranger because he handled crowds better than I did. Karen's eyes lit up like a predator spotting prey. "Alex," she called loudly, "about your dog. We've had some concerns." Every head turned. Ranger sat beside me, perfectly still, gaze on my hand. "Concerns?" I repeated, already feeling the flush crawl up my neck. She smiled wide, the polite kind that shows teeth, but no warmth. "Some residents have mentioned aggressive posture in the hall. Intimidating presence. We just want everyone to feel safe." "He's never growled, snapped, or lunged at anyone here," I said. "He heals. He ignores people unless I tell him otherwise. He's better trained than half the humans in this building." A couple people laughed nervously. Karen's eyes flashed. "A big dog is a big liability," she said. "I've spoken to management. They'll be reviewing whether he really fits within policy." That same afternoon, a formal pet conduct warning appeared in my email. Reports of intimidating behavior from large dog. Further incidents may result in lease action. No details, just cold text and a reminder of the no-tolerance clause. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the screen while Ranger rested his head on my knee, warm and solid. Losing him wasn't an option. Moving suddenly wasn't either, not with my pay. I told myself I could keep my head down and be perfect, so even her lies wouldn't stick. Then someone pounded on my door so hard the deadbolt rattled in the frame. The pounding came again, 3 fast hits that made Ranger surge to his feet. He stared at the door, muscles tight, but waiting for my cue. I clipped a hand on his collar, more out of habit than need, and looked through the peephole. "Karen." "Of course." I cracked the door with the chain still on. "Can I help you?" Her eyes flicked down to Ranger. "You can start by controlling that animal," she snapped. "He barked for 20 minutes while you were out this morning." "I was asleep all morning," I said slowly. "Night shift, remember? We walked at noon." "That's it." She scoffed. "I know what I heard. And I'll be documenting every incident from now on. Management takes my reports seriously." Ranger didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just watched her, unwavering, like he was cataloging her voice into his internal threat library. Over the next week, I noticed a shift in the building. Mrs. Green from 3B, who used to let Ranger sniff her hands, now avoided eye contact. A couple of teenagers in the stairwell fell silent when I walked by. One of them whispered, "That's the guy with the aggressive cop dog." At work, I vented to Marco. "She acts normal around them," I said. Smiley. Helpful. The second the hallway's empty, she goes full hall monitor. He shrugged. "You know what you tell people every night at the hospital? Document, man. Write stuff down. Cameras, timestamps. Don't wait till it gets crazy." When I got home that night, I saw Mr. Lopez sitting on the bench by the parking lot. He waved me over. "Be careful with her," he said quietly, glancing at Karen's lit window. "She did the same thing to a guy with a pit mix before you. Complaints, calls, letters." He moved out. "What happened?" I asked. He sighed. He didn't have proof, just his word against hers. Ranger nudged my hand, like he wanted me to remember he was right there. That was the moment I decided I would not be caught without proof this time. The first undeniable clue showed up in shoe prints. One rainy morning, I woke up to Ranger pacing quietly between the living room and the door. No barking, just that anxious back and forth he used on shift when he smelled something off. I checked the time, 10:12 a.m., 2 hours after my night shift ended. I'd been out cold. "Sit," I mumbled. He obeyed, but his eyes stayed glued to the door. When I opened it, there were wet footprints on my doormat. Not just outside, on the inside edge, where the mat met my hallway floor. The pattern stopped halfway into my entryway tile, right where you'd step if you eased the door open and leaned in. I froze. I always lock the deadbolt. I checked it again. Solid. Then I saw it. The latch for the emergency key lockbox slightly askew, the metal scratched. Someone with a master key had opened my door. "Karen," I whispered. as Ranger let out a low, frustrated whine. That same afternoon, I found a new note on my door. Noise complaint logged. Large dog pacing incessantly, disturbing peaceful enjoyment. Consider crating. Karen, RAC. Pacing. She used the word pacing. Okay, I muttered. You want to play games? I went to the electronics store that night and bought 2 discrete Wi-Fi cameras. One for my living room facing the door, another for the hallway pointed at my threshold. I set them up, tested the feeds, and synced them to my phone. I didn't confront her. Every instinct from work told me that would just make her more careful. Instead, I sat on my couch with the lights off, Ranger's head in my lap, watching the little red recording indicator glow on my screen. I didn't have to wait long before the cameras caught something that made my blood run cold. 2 days later, I was at the hospital comparing hallway footage on my phone during a quiet stretch of my shift. Timestamp, 11:03 a.m. My car was clearly still in the lot at work. The hallway camera showed Karen leaving her apartment, glancing both ways, then stopping at my door. She leaned in close, lips moving, and I cranked the volume. "Big scary dog home alone," she whispered. "Poor neighbors." She took out her phone, snapped a picture of my door, then tried the handle. She pulled, pushed, tested it. When it didn't budge, she looked genuinely annoyed, like the door had broken some unwritten rule. Then came the living room camera feed. The door stayed closed, but the light shifted under the frame as she moved. Ranger walked calmly to the door, ears up. He sniffed, then sat directly in front of it, facing her, utterly silent. No barking, no scratching, no lunging, just a trained working dog waiting for my call. Back in the hallway video, Karen stepped back, shook her head, and spoke louder. "This is harassment," she said to no one. "Unstable. I'll have to report this." I watched that clip 3 times, my jaw clenched. This wasn't a misunderstanding or paranoia. She was deliberately manufacturing a narrative. That evening, I knocked on Mr. Lopez's door. He let me in, his living room smelling like coffee and old books. "Has she ever tried to get into your place?" I asked. He gave a humorless chuckle. "No. I told her once I have cameras." His eyes sharpened. "You do now, too?" I nodded and showed him the footage. He watched quietly, then shook his head. "You need to save this. Date it. Back it up. She's not just annoying, Alex. She's dangerous." Ranger rested his chin on my knee, as if anchoring me to the couch. I hadn't realized yet just how far Karen was willing to escalate this performance. The mini twist came from the leasing office. I requested a meeting with Jenna, the property manager, under the pretense of clarifying pet rules. Her office smelled like air freshener and stress. Stacks of files lined the walls, the HOA bylaws binder sitting open on her desk. "I'm just confused," I said. "I got a warning about my dog, but there's no incident described. Is there, like, a report?" She frowned and clicked through her computer. "We've had several complaints," she said slowly. "All from the same resident, though." "Karen," I said. Her eyebrow twitched. "Ms. Fields is on the HOA advisory board. She submits detailed documentation." "Can I see it?" I asked. She hesitated, then turned the monitor slightly. The screen showed a folder, Incidents, Dog, Unit 3C. Inside were PDFs with dates, each one titled things like loud aggressive barking, uncontrolled dog in hallway, resident feels unsafe. But what really caught my eye was a different folder at the top. Noise violations, MS Fields. It had twice as many files. "What's that?" I asked. Jenna quickly minimized it. "Old issues. Not relevant. Look, Alex, I'm supposed to remain neutral here." "Were those complaints about her?" I pressed. She sighed. Before she joined the advisory board, she got written up a few times. Late-night parties, loud music, yelling on her balcony. It started to affect renewals. Then she shifted roles. Became the rule enforcer instead of the rule breaker, I said. Jenna didn't answer, which was answer enough. On my way out, Mr. Lopez caught me in the parking lot. "She's scared of losing her power," he said quietly. The HOA almost kicked her off for creating hostile environments. Then she started crusading about pets. If she could frame me as the problem resident, she got to stay the hero. And if that meant targeting Ranger, she clearly didn't care about the fallout. I looked down at my dog, who blinked up at me with steady, trusting eyes. I finally understood that if Karen won, Ranger and I could be completely erased. Armed with context and a couple damning videos, I started building an actual plan. First, I pulled every email I'd ever received from management about Ranger and saved them in a folder labeled Cover Your ASS. I exported the hallway clips, the living room footage, even the shot of her note accusing my dog of pacing incessantly while she stood at my door. I backed them up to an external drive and cloud storage. Next, I began a log. Date, time, what happened, who was present. April 12th, 2:17 p.m. Karen stood outside my door for 3 minutes, talking loudly about aggressive dog. Ranger silent. Video saved. It felt tedious, but at work I'd seen sloppy documentation tank solid cases. Mr. Lopez agreed to help. If I see anything, I'll write it down and sign, he said. I've lived here over 20 years. My word still counts for something. The moral dilemma hit me hard one night while I was tightening Ranger's harness before a walk. If I pushed this, it would become official, hearings, complaints about harassment, maybe lawyers. It would definitely make living here uncomfortable. Part of me wanted to just transfer to a different complex, start over, hope for better neighbors. But then Ranger nudged my hand with his nose, eyes soft. He'd been moved around enough. Kennel, training center, police unit, transitional facility, finally me. I promised him stability. Letting someone bully us out of our home broke that promise. I won't run, I told him quietly. Not this time. My plan solidified. I'd request a formal sit-down with management and, if needed, the HOA. I'd present my evidence calmly and ask that all future complaints about Ranger be required to include dates, times, and independent verification. Before I could make that request, though, Karen forced my hand with one dangerous stunt. She decided the fastest way to win was to manufacture a full-blown emergency involving my dog. It happened on a Saturday afternoon, when I finally had a day off that didn't involve catching up on sleep. I was on the couch watching a game, Ranger sprawled at my feet, when there was a knock, soft, measured, not Karen's usual assault. I opened the door to find 2 police officers and Jenna standing there. My stomach dropped. Alex Moore, one officer asked. His name tag read Daniels. We received a call about a dog attack in this building. My mouth went dry. From who? Anonymous resident, he said, but we all knew. We need to check on your dog and confirm he's not a danger to others. Ranger sat politely by my side as if he'd heard and decided to handle his own PR. I stepped back. Come in. Officer Daniels watched Ranger carefully. What commands does he know? He asked. I ran him through a quick sequence. Sit, down, stay, heel, place. Ranger executed each one with bored precision, tail gently thumping. Jenna's eyebrows rose. The other officer relaxed a fraction. Mind if I ask where he was an hour ago? Daniels said. We were told he was running loose in the hallway, growling and snapping. He was here, I said. Sleeping. You can check my living room camera. All 3 of them looked at me. I pulled the feed up on my TV. Timestamp, 1:02 p.m. Ranger was a brown lump on his bed. No movement until 1:20, when my phone alarm chimed for his walk. Daniels nodded slowly. We're also going to review the building's hallway footage, he said. Standard procedure when there's conflicting accounts. Jenna swallowed. We can go to the office now, she offered. As they left, Daniels paused. If anyone gives you trouble for installing cameras inside your own apartment, he said quietly. Tell them I said it smart. I exhaled when the door closed. Ranger climbed onto the couch and leaned his full weight against me. I didn't know it yet, but that visit had given me the perfect ally for what came next. A few days later, Jenna called me to the office again. I walked in to find her looking more tired than usual, a stack of papers in front of her and Karen's complaint folder open on the screen. Alex, she said, we reviewed the hallway footage with the officers. And? I asked. She rubbed her temples. There was no dog in the hallway at the time of the alleged attack. None. Just a mess. Fields walking back and forth, checking doors, talking on the phone. I let that sit between us. We're required to take all resident complaints seriously, she continued. But fabricating emergencies crosses a line. Officer Daniels recommended a formal meeting with the HOA and all parties present. He wants everything on record. Good, I said. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't fear, it was adrenaline. I spent that night refining my trap. I compiled a slideshow, short hallway clips of Karen lingering at my door, the living room shot of Ranger silent and steady, screenshots of notes and emails, timestamps lined up alongside her accusations. Mr. Lopez agreed to attend as a witness. "I like that officer," he said. "He listens more than he talks." "That's rare." The hearing would be in the courtyard community room, glass walls facing the playground and parking lot. Management, HOA reps, Karen, me. Probably a few curious neighbors accidentally passing by. I practiced what I'd say, over and over, while Ranger watched me pace. "You're going to lie there and look bored," I told him. "That's your whole job. Think you can manage?" He yawned, which I took as a yes. On the morning of the meeting, I clipped on his vest, the one that read, "Working dog, do not pet," even though he was technically retired now. I opened my door to head downstairs and found Karen already in the hallway, smiling like she'd won something. The way she greeted Ranger that morning told me she had one last ugly trick prepared. Karen's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Big day, huh?" she said sweetly. "I hope your friend behaves himself in front of the board." Ranger stood in heel position, eyes on me. Karen took a half step closer, hand outstretched, fingers fluttering like bait. "Careful," I said. "He's working right now. Please don't touch him." She froze, then raised her voice. "Did you hear that?" she called down the hall, where no one stood. He just admitted his dog might be unsafe if approached. My jaw clenched. I said nothing. Let her talk. Let the cameras record. In the community room, folding chairs formed a loose semicircle. Jenna sat with a laptop, 2 HOA members beside her. Officer Daniels stood near the back, arms folded, eyes neutral. Mr. Lopez gave me a quick nod from his seat. Karen walked in behind us, clutching her arm dramatically in a makeshift sling I'd never seen before. She took a sharp breath when she passed Ranger, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Thank you all for coming," Jenna began. "We're here to address ongoing concerns regarding Unit 3 CS Dog and allegations of harassment." Karen launched into her script first, tales of late-night barking, lunges in the hallway, being attacked near the elevators. Her voice shook at all the right moments. "I've lived here for years," she finished, dabbing her eyes. "I've never felt so unsafe in my own hallway." "Mr. Moore," Jenna said. "Your response." I swallowed, feeling every eye on me. "I respect rules," I began. "I work in security. I know what real danger looks like. Ranger is not dangerous. But what Ms. Fields is doing absolutely is." I clicked the remote. The TV flickered to life. Clip 1. Karen at my door, trying the handle. Ranger, silent. Clip 2. Her whispering about a big, scary dog pacing, while Ranger sat calmly inside. Clip 3. The time-stamped comparison of her alleged attack versus the empty hallway. With each video, Karen's face tightened, lips thinning. "Mr. Lopez?" Daniels asked quietly. "You had something to add?" "I've watched that dog for over a year," he said. "He's the calmest thing on this floor. The only one pacing and shouting is her." I clicked to the final slide. The police call log showing a dog attack, with no evidence, and Daniel's written recommendation for further action. For the first time since I moved in, Karen truly looked afraid. She realized too late that the room no longer believed a single word she said. Silence hung in the air for a long moment after the last clip ended. The hum of the old AC unit sounded suddenly loud. Jenna cleared her throat. "Ms. Fields," she said carefully. "Can you explain why your written reports describe sustained barking and aggression that do not appear on our hallway or interior footage?" Karen's eyes darted from me to the TV to Officer Daniels. "Your cameras must be faulty," she snapped. "Maybe he disabled them. Maybe he edited the video. I know what I experienced." Daniels stepped forward, voice calm. "For the record," he said, "my department independently reviewed the footage pulled directly from the building's system. It matches what you just saw." One HOA member, a gray-haired woman with a pinched expression, finally spoke. "Ms. Fields, this is not the first time concerns have been raised about your conduct with neighbors." Color rose in Karen's cheeks. "So you're taking his side?" she demanded. "You'd rather believe some dog over a long-term resident who's volunteered for years?" "I'm believing timestamps," the woman replied, "and a pattern of behavior." The consequences came quickly after that. Jenna announced that all of Karen's future complaints would require third-party verification. The HOA issued a formal warning for filing false reports and creating a hostile environment. There was talk of revoking her advisory role if there was another incident. "And the dog?" I asked quietly. Ranger is considered compliant and non-dangerous, Daniels said. No further action recommended. Karen stormed out, shoulders slamming into mine hard enough to jostle Ranger's leash. He didn't react beyond a brief glance, ears flicking. You think you've won, she hissed. This isn't over. Outside, a couple neighbors who'd accidentally been nearby gave me cautious thumbs-ups. Mr. Lopez clapped a hand on my shoulder. You did good, kid, he said. You didn't let her scare you out. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt drained, like I'd just finished a double shift with no break. Ranger pressed against my leg, grounding me. Karen had lost her power over the building, but she was still my neighbor, for now. I didn't yet realize how much damage her lies had already done inside my head. The weeks after the hearing were quieter, at least on the surface. No more notes on my door. No more surprise knocks. Karen stopped lingering in the hallway. Her door opened and closed in quick, controlled bursts. Management emailed to confirm that a no-contact directive had been placed in our files. Any necessary communication between us would go through them. It was the closest thing to a restraining order the lease allowed. But my nervous system didn't get the memo. I jumped at every sudden noise in the hallway. A knock on another door made my heart race. I found myself checking the living room camera feed 3 for times a night at work, even though nothing ever changed but Ranger shifting in his sleep. At Mr. Lopez's insistence, I booked a few sessions with a therapist. You were living in constant low-grade threat, she said. Your brain doesn't flip off overnight just because the external situation changed. We worked on small things, breathing exercises, reminding myself that my door was locked, repeating that I had proof on my side now. Ranger became part of the routine. We practiced new commands, little puzzles that challenged his brain and mine. I also met with Jenna one last time to finalize boundaries in writing. Any future complaints about Ranger from any resident must include specific, verifiable details, the document read. Anonymous or non-specific claims will not result in lease action without supporting evidence. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like a seatbelt. Slowly, the building thawed. Mrs. Green started talking to me again. The teenagers in the stairwell asked if Ranger could show them a trick. He did a flawless stay, while a slice of pepperoni balanced on his nose. At night, for the first time in months, I could sit on my couch and actually hear the TV instead of my own thoughts. I thought the story was over until something unexpected appeared in Karen's window one morning. I was clipping Ranger's leash on for our usual morning walk when I saw it. A for sale sign hanging crooked inside Karen's front window. My jaw actually dropped. I texted Mr. Lopez a photo. He replied in seconds. HOA pushed her hard, he wrote. Plus rumor says she's getting cited for some old noise violations they revisited. Consequences, finally. I stared at the sign for a long moment, a weird mix of relief and pity twisting in my chest. Karen had done this to herself, but I knew how it felt to watch her sense of home crumble. On our walk, Ranger trotted beside me, perfectly in step. A neighbor I barely knew waved. Hey man, he called. Glad things worked out with your dog. My kids love seeing him. Thanks, I said, and realized I meant it without reservation. Life didn't magically turn into a feel-good montage. I still double-checked my lock some nights. Loud voices in the hallway still spiked my adrenaline. But I also had new habits, documenting anything weird, trusting my gut, talking things out with people like Mr. Lopez instead of swallowing it all. On Karen's last week in the building, we passed each other in the parking lot. She looked smaller somehow, shoulders hunched. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then closed it and kept walking. Ranger glanced at her, then back at me, uninterested. That night, I sat on my couch. Lights off. Balcony door cracked just enough to hear the distant hum of the city. Ranger's head rested on my leg, his breathing slow and steady. My apartment finally felt like what I'd wanted it to be from the start, a place where I could exhale. If you're dealing with your own Karen, remember this. Document everything, trust your instincts, and never let someone bully you out of the space you've earned. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay put and press record.